Hey everyone, welcome to the Rewired Parent, aka hashtag Spark Nation. And here on the latest podcast episode, I am so stoked to have my first official guest, Davina Hehn. Did I pronounce that right?
Hehn, like the
Hehn.
minus the S. Yeah.
Nice, Davina Hehn. And I've already had a chance to talk to her before this recording, but I'll tell you a little bit about her because you're going to want to check out all the work that she's doing. Trained therapist turned mental health coach. Love that. Professional friend, empowering us to advocate for ourselves without causing collateral damage. How to regulate our nervous system. And I love this little phrase here, raise kids in ways worth repeating. So that's why I think this is an amazing match for this show. You're also the host of your own podcast, Shift Talking. And you can find her work on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, at A Steady Space. And then you got to check out her website, asteadyspace.com, because there is just so much good stuff on there. Some quizzes and that we'll talk about a little bit later. So we're talking today, moving from rupture to repair. As parents, especially of neurodivergent children, how can we break some of the cycles that are there because of the way we were raised and are ingrained in us, as well as understanding anger and building anger intelligence. So, Davina, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, this is so aligned with not only me, what I do professionally, but my home life too. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, that's what I love, because we can put together that profession / we're in the trenches every day as parents. And so we totally get it. So I know for me growing up, I was taught and told, drilled into me, that anger is bad. It's a character flaw, especially in parenting, right? Parents, we stay away from anger, is one letter away from danger kind of thing. But I love your framework. So talk to me a little bit about your framework and anger intelligence and what that kind of does to help us reframe anger as parents.
Yeah, I mean, anger in and of itself is so deeply misunderstood. And it of course, in our attempt at understanding and managing and controlling the aggression that comes as a result of anger, it became such a criminalized clinical experience and an approach, which of course worked for what it worked for, but now we need new and different approaches. We need to be more innovative. So everything that I'm doing is helping us understand where anger comes from and allowing for us to do something different with it. It's much more of our compass. It's letting us know where something doesn't feel right, where we're not safe, where something feels trampled. And it's about listening to that part instead of just leading with the knee-jerk, of course, reaction of the fight or flight, the freeze, the fawn, the aggression, the lashing out. And it was through my own experience in parenting and partnering that it overwhelmed my threshold to cope, to stay calm, to be able to manage myself in a day-to-day existence. And that's exactly why I've evolved it away from this more clinical, court-ordered anger management that I used to do into something that's so much more universally accepted and needed in a way that becomes more of an anger intelligence. It becomes a whole new language that we get to learn how to speak so that we don't have to talk people out of feeling a very innate emotion that we're wired to experience. And instead, we can use it as a catalyst for change, as a catalyst for advocacy, and for us to really get to know ourselves that much more, really learn what sparks us, why, and what else we can do about it in order to create more solution and more steady in our lives, as opposed to this, repress, injure, repair model that we tend to find ourselves within.
I love that. And I love how you just explained, as you say, anger isn't the problem, it's the signal. It's kind of like I love to say, is that all behavior is communication. So you kind of mentioned it. So let's say real life, I'm parenting, my kid does something like breaks my favorite collectible or whatever it is that happens, and I start feeling this sense in me. I'm about to lose my cool. What is the signal telling me in that moment? What should I be listening to instead of trying to repress it or just letting it fly and screaming and cursing and just going off the handle?
Yeah, I mean, getting it more in touch with our body first, because we experience the emotion of these things within milliseconds. It's within a blink of an eye that this starts happening before we're even consciously aware of it. There's many times that I'd imagine you and listeners have experienced where before I even know it, I'm already like mouthing off and I'm already saying things that are just gross and heinous. And I don't even know when I went from like relatively calm maybe to just irate. And my chest is heavy, my heart's pumping, I'm just like sweating, I'm angry, I'm red in the face. And it's about getting in touch with and learning to check in with our body throughout the day to see kind of just where I'm at. A lot of us have a tendency to just shove things down and keep it moving. And when we do that without actually giving it some attention, we're storing all of this energy that we didn't even realize we had. So first, getting more in touch with your body, learning what sounds and feelings and sensations we're used to. That's usually going to be the first thing where I start to notice my palms get sweaty almost immediately, like I immediately get clammy, and my heart starts pumping out of my chest. My breathing gets very shallow. So those are the things that we want to notice right away. Most of the time, once we get familiar with that, we'll feel almost like a pang in our chest, like something, it almost feels like something hit us. And that becomes your sign of like, oof, I'm angry. Oof, I'm upset. I just need a minute. Right. And what's going to happen in that moment, because neurologically, we are operating within a fight or flight. That collectible, whatever that was that is broken or nearly broken or messed with and might break, is already telling us, like, that is already sending those signals. Sirens are going off in my head. So what we get to do is recognize that the urgency that our brain is suggesting that we move with does not have to be the case. So once you feel that pang, that's immediately your sign of, okay, I need some distance. I need to create an intentional time delay between what the stimulus was to what I'm actually going to do about it. When we fail at that, because we will more times than not, and say we go about it in a crummy way, we tell them to put it down or look what you did or whatever it is, start cleaning it up. We always want to be able to go back to what I refer to as the shift framework, which is our self-awareness, our healing, innovation, fortitude, transformation. So first, you want to go back when you're reflecting on it to what sparked me, not just the surface level, because oftentimes this is what we think and what I used to think as well, which was like, well, that is a collectible. Like, why wouldn't I be upset by that? But it's not just that. It's not just the monetary value of it. It's also about the freedom that you had as a kid, about your child coming in and kind of trampling over your privacy, your boundaries, your belongings. There's going to be so much that comes up there that is so nuanced, so layered, so rich in data. And it's likely it's likely a multiple truths of all of these things happening simultaneously. I noticed you, here, give me.
I know, because there's just so much that's going on, but I want to let you talk as much as possible, because it's just amazing stuff. So self-awareness. So I may or may not, I guess my question to you would be, okay, in that instance, I'm going to have to probably reflect afterward. So when I've calmed my nervous system down, and I'm starting to I need to process, right? Is that what you're saying? I need to think about why did I get so pissed off about some stupid plastic toy beyond just, like you said, the surface, right? I mean, is it something that, like you said, is it deeper? And so you're encouraging us to go deeper into that moment, so that way before the next moment occurs, we're able to process through that. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah. And the question you asked yourself is so rooted in shame and judgment of yourself. That's what I think is the ultimate gaslight when it comes to anger and
Mm-hmm.
aggression, is that somehow, because I went about it in a crummy way, my original upset isn't allowed to be important.
Mm.
It's not allowed to be valid anymore because what I did with it was so poor. And so even in the reflection, right? It's what we do when we're trying to get to the bottom of something. We tend to start with the why. Why ultimately triggers that judgment, that criticism, because why implies that there is a right or wrong answer. Why implies that I'm going to have to get this answer good enough to be valid enough to justify my behavior. And so we want to replace the why with a what. What was that?
Mm-hmm.
It's leading with more curiosity than ridicule. And even the, why am I getting upset over this stupid small plastic toy or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that was?
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
already an innate judgment that you shouldn't have been mad. It's fair. Your belonging was broken. Your belonging was touched and like jostled with and played with without your consent. You're allowed to be bothered by that. And that's typically what happens, is because the guilt and the shame about the way
Mm-hmm.
that I went about it it almost tricks us into thinking that I need to reduce and minimize the reason why I was upset at all. And so we want to switch from that more critical, likely our parents' narrative or a mentor or a guardian's narrative that we had, which is like, why are you like this? Why does this matter to you? And switch it, because now we have the opportunity to be able to switch that for ourselves into, whoa, what was that? That
Mm-hmm.
sparked me. Yes, that does bother me that I don't want this collectible, whatever this is, broken. And that was a big response. That was a big reaction I had to that. I wonder what that is. Where does that come from?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to lead with more curiosity about ourselves. We get to answer and ask and go back and forth and kind of get deeper and deeper into it. And I know that the typical advice we're given is to ask yourself the question why 5 to 7 times. And I can understand why, and I get a lot of pushback on, does it
Mm-hmm.
really matter if I start with why? Yes, I think words matter. They carry weight. We assign narrative and meaning to the words that we use. So yeah, let's do a modification. Let's break the patterning of the why and say, what was that? Well, it's that broke. Okay, well, what about that bothers me? Well, maybe it was the financial part of it. Well, what about that bothers me? Well, things aren't so good right now. Like, I really wanted that to be something that my child could take and use on a rainy day if they ever needed it. Or, it's all
Exactly.
about asking deeper and deeper and deeper. And then when we understand that, when we can ask, like, what was that? So many times over, there's no way to invalidate that. There's no way to remove the importance of that for you. And that's ultimately what I want us all to do, especially as parents who weren't parented in this way, who weren't shown
Yes.
the grace and compassion that we are deeply desperate to show our own kids. Is we still need that. Our wiring, our nervous system was still built on most of that. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And I'm
Yes.
just like, be mad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I would much rather you be mad at me than disappointed. And it's about rewriting and being willing to rewire, to your point,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
rewire the narrative behind the justification, behind the reasons why I get upset.
Oh, that's huge. Because as you're talking right now, and I realize just talking to you and saying why and what you brought about shame, I think even how we ask the questions reveals a lot about the trauma that still lives in us. And so I am a bona fide certified people pleaser because of all the shame and guilt I felt growing up. And yeah, I asked those kinds of questions like, why'd you do that? Kind of those kinds of things, And so to me, that's being fed anger and what you're feeling is always wrong and always unjustified. Even in analyzing my own soul, I have to be careful because I can still bring up those patterns, which then lead me into self-condemnation, which is one end of it. But I think there's also this other end of it where sometimes we feel, and I hear this a lot, and I get it, like from parents and from teachers, that we make it all about the kid, right? And so there's no need for me to self-reflect. They came in, they knew they weren't supposed to do that. They touched it, they knew they weren't supposed to do that. So I'm justified in my anger because they disobeyed me and they defied my order. And so it's not about me at all. It's about them, and they need to learn. And the only way they're going to learn, I hear this a lot, right? They have to learn. And then it comes, they have to learn that you don't touch my stuff. So it becomes very authoritarian in that response. And then anger can become something that is feared, which can lead to the people pleasing, or it leads to resentment. And I'm never going to let anybody ever talk to me that way when I grow up, kind of thing. So I see all of that. So that just that what and breaking it down is so powerful. Like you can just like drop the mic on that. But I want to hear a little bit more, because you said that's the S, and then you kind of went through the HIFT quickly. So expand a little bit more on the others. I mean, okay, I asked myself these questions as the parent. What was going on? What made me feel that way, or whatever I'm going to ask myself and go deeper. Where do I go from there? Because I don't want to just navel gaze or, again, feel bad about myself. So how do I continue the shift?
Yeah. So next is the healing, mainly healing from the bullshit, what she's named, but it's healing from that, from this very antiquated, likely authoritarian mindset of you're not allowed. You're just not allowed. In order to get my point across, I need to lead with fear. It's this kind of being willing and open to rub up against the status quo, being able to question it, not to find holes in its argument, but instead to determine whether that's really something that matters to you. So much of what I hear from my clients and what I used to say was like, well, that's just the way that I was raised. That's how it was when I grew up. I didn't get this, so why wouldn't I? And why should they? And all of this. And it's really being open and willing to question the narrative, find out whether it still matches and aligns with who you are now and who you want to be inevitably. We repeat what we don't repair. And so in the H is really just our opportunity to heal through some of it.
Stop right there real quick.
Yes.
Say that again. We repeat what we
don't repair.
Wow. Okay.
I know. And
all right, keep going.
This choice, right? We have this choice of whether we want to repair, whether we want to repeat it or not. And given what we all know is that I don't want to do what my parents did. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to talk in the way that my mom did, my dad did. If we don't focus on what we want to do instead, we will. I'm not going to yell like my dad did. Okay, so the self-talk is don't yell. What are you going to do instead? Your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain hears yell. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. So we have this opportunity to be able to rewrite the narrative, rewrite the pattern. And the biggest, again, of course, because anger is such a deeply stigmatized and judged emotion and experience, what I also want us to spend some time in and during this healing is, how did that serve me? Because for some time, in some contexts, that behavior, that reaction is likely helpful. How had that helped me before? And maybe now it no longer does. But it's not only about the ridicule. It's not only about the reasons why I've erred in so many ways. It's about what can I start doing differently, and how did that previous wiring, how did that previous patterning serve me, keep me alive this long, promote advocacy for myself. And so we heal through it. We allow for this to be not a deep dive into who we are at our core and healing the trauma of it, more so recognizing the pattern through the self-awareness where that comes from, and then giving ourselves permission to wonder what it might be like to lead with compassion for myself, to see where it was justified, to see what made sense for me, how that served me, how that protected me. And then also get us into our I, which is the innovation of it, which is, what can I start doing differently to still achieve the same result, to still advocate for my things and my belongings and my boundaries and all of these things, while not trampling over their emotional boundaries, their emotional health, and those types of things. So then the innovation becomes, we try something new and different. We don't try the same thing that we did before, which is a suppression, which is like you're way more important than that toy will ever be. I'm so sorry I got mad at you. Yes, that's true. Like our kids are more
Mm-hmm.
important than this toy. And that still meant something to me. It doesn't have to be a competition.
Right.
What's coming up for you? Your wheels are turning.
Yeah, it's not an either or. It's a both and.
Yeah.
I can feel what I feel, and thinking about that innovation. So is that what you're talking about with the pot? Maybe trying, okay, next time I get this feeling, I'm going to take a pause, or I'm going to take a breath, or I'm going to whatever it is works in that moment to help us regulate our nervous system. That's what you're talking about there with the innovation.
Yeah, we try something different. So if you're open to, I'll share a little bit something that
Uh-huh.
sparked me and my son this week.
Uh-huh.
And we can, okay. He's 5 and he's in a full fib period. And my experience with fibbing and white lies and lying and stretching the truth and that kind of thing is a deeply triggering experience for me. I grew up the youngest sibling of an addict. I'm married to an alcoholic in recovery. There's so much lying and gaslighting in order to protect and preserve them that we end up becoming the collateral damage of that. And so I'm deeply aware that one of my deepest wounds is dishonesty, is looking me in my eye and telling a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And also on the flip side of that is when it comes to my son, I want him to know that I'm a safe person to tell the truth to. So it's not only my previous wounding, it's also my fears about what does this mean for him if I'm not a safe person for him, if he's scared of me.
Uh-huh.
So that's what happened this week. I lost it a little bit. I was not super stoked on being lied to for like the 17th time that day. And we went on the stairs. We talked it through after I got loud. I asked him if he was ready to make peace. He said yes. We met. He went upstairs. I stayed downstairs. We met on the landing in the middle of the stairs. And when I shared with him, I didn't go into the history of my wounding. That's not his business. And I'll share that with him when he's older and we can be friends. But it was that where I told him it's really hard for me when I'm lied to. And some of that is because you lied. And some of that is just because that hurts me. And that's my stuff. What if we come up with a code word? What if we come up with a code word that both of us remember that will remind me to stay more calm, to take some deep breaths and calm my heart, and will also remind you that I'm a safe person to tell the truth to. That you can tell me the truth without worry that I'm going to get mad. And he said yes, and now our code word is stairs.
Oh,
so
nice.
now each time this happens, we both remember where it came from. It's no longer this like when his body's just screaming, when his brain is screaming is like, you know, obviously telling him to lie and that it's safer to lie and doing all of this. If I go to him and say, I'm a safe person, just tell me the truth, when I'm already also activated, neither one of us is going to get there. Our frontal lobe is shut down, the little bit that he has built already, and mine is already hijacked. So it becomes that where we can use these quick things that it's like also a little bit of a connection between me and him that nobody else knows about. It makes it less obvious in front of family and friends that I know he lied, and it's not all eyes on him during that time. So now it becomes that now that he just did it this morning. He said something about his cousin. I said, well, stairs? And he was like, okay, no, that's not what happened. It's like, okay, great. Thank you for telling me the truth. Go put a marble in the jar, which is like our marbles, like pro and con. And it allowed for that to be this code work, this innovation, because I've tried so many different ways to get this kid to stop fucking lying to me.
Well, and I think that's where parents are at, right? They're like, and then when they're talking to quote unquote other experts, especially behavioralists who are like, you have to do this and that. And, you're almost trying to condition them into compliance versus, like you said, you're building the connection, and the safety is felt. It's not just something that, like you said, if you say, oh, I'm a safe person, I'm a safe person to talk to, our words and our nervous systems are not matching in that moment. And our kids know, I mean, we're intuitive to know, especially our children, to know when we're trying to get on them about fibbing and yet we're lying because we're telling them you're a safe place. And yet they know they're not in that moment. So I love that innovation. And it's really, especially when I'm coaching parents too, we're doing the same thing where we're saying, it's based on a connection. You're not going to pull off a book on your shelf. I mean, I tell parents all the time, because when they call and they want to meet, they just, and I get it, because I want it too. Just give me what I need to do to fix it now. And so I will say, well, I can recommend a book that has, I think I have one there. It's like 101 ways, to whatever, help your child regulate or whatever. But I said, it's got to be authentic connection, and you have to, and it requires us knowing who our children are and embracing that. And so like what you're saying is you're embracing the fact that there is a reason, or there's at least something that's saying it's safer for me in this moment to lie.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, sometimes as parents, we might get offended, like, well, we go into that spiral. What did I do wrongs that they feel like they had to lie? Well, it's not always about you either.
Yeah.
So we have the S, the H, and the I. And I'm thinking that we could tackle that in the next